Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collingwood for YouTube, and I'm here to do another versus video. The original series versus the revival series. Character versus character. And who am I squaring off today? Now, obviously, it's not a literal versus. Dr. Julia Hoffman versus Dr. Julia Hoffman. In the 1966 original series, Dr. Julia Hoffman was played by actress Grayson Hall. In the 1991 revival series, she's played by actress Barbara Steele. Now, there are some interesting things to get to here. Let's point out number one. Dr. Hoffman doesn't arrive until 1967. So in 1966, she's not there yet. Now, is that the biggest thing? It's one of them. Here's the first. Dark Shadows is a series that had a character undergo a sex change. Now, not in the way you think. This is what's interesting. When Dr. Hoffman is first mentioned, they don't mention a first name. Dave Woodard mentions his name is Dr. Hoffman. His name. They mention Dr. Hoffman as a man. As a man. Give me 1 second, guys. So, Dr. Hoffman is mentioned as a man. The next time Dr. Hoffman is mentioned is when Maggie has escaped and they say, Dr. Julia Hoffman. Then Dr. Hoffman is mentioned as a woman. So this character was not initially supposed to be a woman. It was supposed to be a man. But, and obviously, if you guys heard my top 5 Dark Shadows list, give me 1 second. So, it's really interesting. And I won't pause this no more. So if you hear some tins, I apologize. So, it's real interesting to know that this character was initially supposed to be a man. But it's a genius move what they do, making the character a woman, because in every way, I think it would have been a lot harder. Now, obviously, I don't think the plans come later to turn Barnabas babyface, but I think it would have been harder because Willie was already somewhat. Willie was not really a full heel. He was just Barnabas' servant at this point. But I wouldn't classify him as a baby face. But he did not want innocent people to get hurt, though. So he's sort of shades of gray. So is Dr. Hoffman. She's shades of gray. I think it would have been harder to turn Hoffman baby face if it had been another man. Because, again, you end up turning Barnabas baby face as well. I know I use wrestling terminology a lot. But that's what I know as well. So, Dr. Hoffman being made a woman, being made Dr. Julia Hoffman, was a genius move. Then casting Grayson Hall was an all-time genius move because she sold her ass off. You want to talk about a character who, not only is her name mysterious, but she herself is wrapped in a bunch of mystery that she's one of the strangest Dark Shadows characters with the name Doctor in front of it after Dr. Peter Guffrey, really. If you could say 1 and 1A with Guffrey and Hoffman. It's really interesting because you know her name. You know she's a doctor. She's one of the head doctors, if not the head doctor at Wincliffe Sanitarium. And that's where you finally meet the character, in Wincliffe Sanitarium. But her behavior is so strange. It's so, like, oh my God, like, you understand maybe her keeping patient confidentiality from Dr. Woodard a bit, even though it's her best friend. But from Maggie's father and Maggie's fiance, that's what sort of shook me a bit. I'm thinking, well, wait a second, why can't you fully tell them? And she says to herself, she doesn't fully, know. But she gets this doll that Sarah gave her, and she starts adding names to the doll. And these names she mentions Elizabeth, Vicky, but when she mentions Barnabas, she sees the reaction. And that's what wants her really to go to. She wants to go undercover, not as a doctor, but as someone who's writing a book on the wealthy New England families. That's her cover in Collinsport. Now, so you get to know a little bit about her personality, that she's very daring. She's very courageous. And you're just wondering how daring this woman is. But then you find out when she sneaks into the old house, creeps down the stairs, and discovers the coffin of one Barnabas Collins. She knows what Barnabas is. She's confirmed her suspicion. Remember, she had a compact mirror while she was having Barnabas read the family history book, and she did not see a reflection show. That sort of hinted to her what he could have been, and she confirms it by finding the coffin, by seeing it for herself. Now you're thinking, what's this woman's plan? What's she gonna do? She's gonna go to the cops, right? Nope. She's gonna make a deal with Barnabas himself, or you could say make a deal with the devil, because you might as well be making a deal with the devil at that point.
That's not nice.
But I mean, because you weren't sure what Barnabas was gonna do with her, once they made this deal, because at first you think, well, Barnabas is going to kill her once, when he gets into her room. And she's like, good evening, Barnabas Collins. I've been waiting for you for a long time. And she means that literally, because there's been cases like his, but this could be a breakthrough where they could actually cure somebody with vampirism. And that's what she wants to do, is cure him. And he's like, it's not possible. She's like, oh, it wasn't possible 100 some odd years ago, but it is possible now. And that's, again, Dr. Hoffman takes a lot of chance. Now, what's the similarities? Barbara Steele's character takes a lot of chances too. I mean, that is I would say the biggest similarities. I don't think, again, there's too big of a night and day difference here. But let me point out the one obvious. Obviously, I mentioned about the sex change. There's no sex change in the revival. Julia Hoffman is Dr. Julia Hoffman. She is a woman in the revival. There's no mention of a he. And you don't meet her inside the walls of Wyncliffe, which I found really interesting. I found that really fascinating. They aren't introducing her the same exact way. You meet her getting off the train. And is it me, or did anybody find Barbara Steele's Dr. Hoffman getting off the train as impactful, if not more impactful, than what Vicky's was in the revival? I thought it was, to me. If you disagree, hey, that's fine. Drop a comment. I'll heart it. It's real interesting because once she gets off the train, you have Professor Woodard, who's bringing this woman to Collinwood to help the police, to look at this. And she helps treat Carolyn's bite marks. And once she starts getting around Barnabas, she suspects him, and she knows, she figures out a lot quicker. I think that's the thing too here, is where obviously we know the original lasted way longer than the revival. The revival was only one season. So the original series with Dr. Hoffman has a lot of time to sort of do whatever they want with the character, and they do a bunch with her. With Barbara Steele's Dr. Hoffman, they have to sort of rush a lot of the things they're wanting to do. But here's the one thing I love about Barbara Steele's. She actually met the spirit of Angelique, whereas Dr. Julia Hoffman doesn't physically meet her. She doesn't make eye contact with her. In fact, Dr. Julia Hoffman in the original series, Grayson Hall's Julia Hoffman, she doesn't believe in witches. Remember, and this is what I find odd, she believed in vampirism enough to think, to suspect Barnabas of something, and she confirms that suspicion. Yet when Barnabas tells her about Cassandra / Angelique being this witch, she's sort of like, come on, Barnabas, you don't really believe in that. I'm thinking, wait, what? Wait a second. You're the woman who believed in vampires. There's cases of vampirism, and here's the thing. In the 60s, it's not like there's no cases of witchcraft, or, there hasn't been studies of cases of witchcraft. So I was real shocked by that. Whereas in the revival, what I like about the revival is she actually meets the spirit of Angelique, and she's shocked. She's like, who is that? And Ben Cross delivers the line of the century. That, my dear doctor, is Angelique. Beautiful line by Ben Cross. I really loved his portrayal of Barnabas too. He brought his own style, and I can't wait to do Barnabas versus Barnabas. That's going to be a lot of fun. So, to me, was Dr. Julia Hoffman, was Grayson Hall's Julia Hoffman in love with Barnabas? Yes, she fell in love with him. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. This wasn't just about a relapse. She did not... Yeah, I don't think she wanted to rush the treatment because, she was worried about him. But, two, I think she could have, in the original, she could have given him the cure a lot sooner than what she may have led on to believe. And I think Barnabas's patience, though, too, in the original, is not the best. And we've come to learn that with Willie, too. That, he's just not the most patient vampire or person. Now, in the revival, was Barbara Steele's Dr. Hoffman in love with Barnabas? This is so tough because, again, you could say yes, but I'm going to say she really cared for him. Not necessarily love, because I more sense that she cared about him. I do think there was, again, both characters were jealous that she didn't really want him to go with Vicky. So I guess you could say Barbara Steele's character did somewhat love him. I could see that. But I guess, again, there's not a lot of time with the revival. So again, they're sort of pushing things along and what they're doing with that character. So I guess I could see, so I'll admit to my mistake in this video. I guess I could see Barbara Steele's character sort of somewhat being in love with him. So my bad. Now, what's one of the biggest differences? Now, we know Dr. Hoffman ends up getting possessed by Gerard in the original series, or by the guy who made Angelique a witch. So now what's interesting is Barbara still gets possessed. And no, not by a warlock, but by a witch, by Angelique. The spirit of Angelique jumps into Dr. Hoffman. And, Grayson Hall's character does not actually murder Dave Woodard. Now, she allows Barnabas to murder him. Barnabas does it, not Hoffman. But Hoffman doesn't really help matters by leading Barnabas to him. So she's sort of an accomplice to it. With Barbara Steele, she does murder. With Angelique in her body, Angelique causes her to murder somebody. And who did she cause her to murder? One Joe Haskell in the 1991 revival. That's right. Joe doesn't go off the Wyncliffe in a revival here. He dies. That's what you want to talk about, the most shocking death in a series. To me, the revival has it. It's the death of Joe Haskell, because I would have never imagined they would have killed off Joe Haskell in the original, and they don't. With the revival, they do. They kill him. I mean, flat out, he's dead. And so I do want to point that out. I mean, that is really interesting they had her do that, even though, yeah, she was possessed by Angelique. We know Maggie the medium is going to get the ghost out, get the spirit of Angelique out of her, just to have the spirit of Angelique be inside of Maggie the medium, or Maggie Evans, if you will. Both these actresses did a superb job. I can't sit here and tell you I pick one over the other. I really like what both actresses did from the medicine standpoint. Not only Dr. Hoffman gets a rap with being called Dr. Sedative. I don't necessarily always agree with that. Yeah, she did offer that, but I guess if you really want more of a treatment aspect, I do think she was trying to help Maggie till she found out about Barnabas. With the revival, I do think there's a lot more doctoring going on, because again, they have to put that out front and foremost, because again, the revival only ended up being one season. Now, there is Dr. Julia Hoffman in the original series does do doctoring. She does try to help Barnabas, but there's other things where she, at times, again, because she's working against the supernatural, both Dr. Hoffmans really are in the biggest battle, not just for their lives, but for the people around them. Simple for the fact is, they have no idea what kind of world they've really stepped into. They think they know, but they don't. And I think if you really want further proof of that, Grayson Hall's Dr. Julia Hoffman not believing in witchcraft. Barbara Steele's reaction to Angelique's ghost, or spirit, whatever you want to call it. It lets you know they just might be in over their head just a teeny bit. I hope you guys enjoyed this retrospective review. I'm sure I missed some stuff, but I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you so much.